Hello, and welcome back to the coziest corner of the English learning world. I'm so happy you're here today because this episode, I have been genuinely excited about this one. It's one of those topics that seems simple on the surface, but actually opens up into something really deep and really interesting.
It really does, and it connects so naturally to everything we've been talking about in this series, because we've been exploring what it's like to live in America as an immigrant. And one of the things that can feel really disorienting when you first arrive, especially if you come from a culture where families stay in one place for generations, is just how much Americans move.
So much moving. I remember being genuinely shocked by this. I had American friends and coworkers who had lived in 3 different cities in 5 years, who thought nothing of packing up their entire life and relocating across the country for a job or a relationship or just a feeling that it was time for something new.
And in many cultures, that would be seen as unsettling, rootless even, like something is wrong, like you can't commit, or like you're running away from something. But in American culture, it's often admired. It's seen as adventurous, ambitious, open to opportunity.
2 completely different ways of reading the same behavior. And that contrast, that cultural gap, is so worth exploring because it tells you something really important about American values, about how Americans see themselves and their relationship to place, community, and identity.
And for immigrants especially, understanding why Americans move so much helps you understand a lot of other things. Why American friendships can feel warm but sometimes shallow. Why communities change so quickly. Why your neighbor might wave goodbye after just 1 year. Why the concept of hometown means something different here.
So much to get into. Okay, before we start, how are you today? Full sentence. Check in with yourself. I feel settled today because I've been in the same place for 5 years and I love it. Or I feel restless today because I've been thinking about making a big move. Both are wonderful.
And today's comment challenge, as always, I'm your name from your country, and today I feel emotion because reason.
Write it. We read every single one. Okay, let's move. Pun absolutely intended.
Of course it was. Today's episode is Why Americans Move So Often. And I want to start with a number, because numbers can be really clarifying. The average American moves about 11 to 12 times in their lifetime. Some research puts it even higher.
11 to 12 times. Think about that. If you're from a country where most people live their whole lives within 30 kilometers of where they were born, that number is staggering.
Staggering, overwhelming, shocking in its scale. The number of moves the average American makes is staggering. It's a strong word, and it earns it here.
In comparison, in many European countries, the average person moves 4 or 5 times in a lifetime. In some Asian countries, multi-generational households, meaning grandparents, parents, and children all under one roof, are common. And moving away from the family home is the exception rather than the rule.
So what is going on in America? Why all this movement? That is what today is about. We are going to explore 5 major reasons. And along the way, real vocabulary, real cultural insights, real phrases you can use in conversation.
This episode is B1 level, natural conversation, real content. Clear enough for learners, interesting enough for everyone. Let's go.
The number 1 reason Americans move is work, jobs, opportunity. And this is deeply connected to how the American economy is structured.
In many countries, the economy is more evenly spread. You can find decent work in most regions, but in America, certain industries are concentrated in certain places. Tech jobs cluster in Silicon Valley and Seattle, finance clusters in New York, entertainment in Los Angeles, healthcare and research in Boston, government work in Washington, D.C. If you want a specific career, you often need to go where that career lives.
Cluster, to gather or group together in one place. Tech companies cluster in certain cities. The best hospitals cluster around major universities. This is a very useful word for describing geographic concentration of anything.
And Americans, culturally, are taught from a very young age that you go where the opportunity is, that staying in your hometown when the job prospects are limited is settling. And settling, choosing less than you could have, is one of the things American culture quietly discourages most strongly.
Settling, accepting something less than what you want or could achieve. I didn't want to settle for a job that didn't excite me. He refused to settle for a mediocre life. In American culture, settling is almost a dirty word. The entire cultural narrative says, reach higher, do more, don't stay comfortable when you could be growing.
And that's very American, that restlessness, that sense that something better is always possible if you're willing to move towards it. It connects deeply to the pioneer spirit, the historical idea that America was built by people who packed up and moved west in search of land, opportunity, and freedom.
Pioneer spirit, the attitude of being willing to go somewhere new, face hardship, and build something from scratch. She has a real pioneer spirit. She moved across the country alone and built a career from nothing. It's a celebrated quality in American culture. It has deep historical roots in the westward expansion of the 18th and 19th centuries.
So when an American coworker tells you they're leaving to take a job in another state, they're not abandoning their life. In their frame of mind, they're building it. Following opportunity is not instability, it is ambition.
Ambition, a strong desire to achieve something. Her ambition drove her to move 3 times in 5 years. It is a word that, in American culture, carries almost entirely positive meaning. To be ambitious is to be admirable. To be without ambition is, at best, unusual.
The second big reason Americans move is education. And this one starts young, very young, actually.
The American university system is spread across the country, but concentrated in prestige. The most famous universities, Harvard, Yale, MIT, Stanford, Columbia, are in specific places, and a significant number of American 18-year-olds leave home to attend college in a completely different state, sometimes thousands of miles away.
In many other countries, students live at home and commute to a local university, or they attend the best university in their region. But in America, going away to college, leaving your hometown for a residential university, is seen as a rite of passage, a necessary step towards becoming an independent adult.
Rite of passage, a significant event that marks a transition from one stage of life to another. Leaving home for college is a classic American rite of passage. Other rites of passage, getting your driver's license, your first job, moving into your first apartment, these moments are celebrated as milestones of independence.
And this early movement creates a culture of mobility. When you leave home at 18 to go to college, you learn, perhaps for the first time, that life can be built somewhere other than where you came from. That seed is planted, and it often leads to more moves.
After college comes a job, possibly in yet another city, then maybe graduate school in another state, then a relationship that pulls you somewhere new. Each move builds on the last. The pattern becomes normal, comfortable even.
Mobility, the ability and willingness to move. Social mobility means moving up in economic status. Geographic mobility means moving from place to place. Americans tend to have high geographic mobility. It's both a characteristic of American life and a driver of it.
Not all moves are chosen. This reason is harder to talk about because it's not about ambition or opportunity. It's about being priced out.
Priced out. When housing costs in an area become too expensive for a person or family to afford, and they are forced to move to a more affordable place. Many longtime residents were priced out of San Francisco when tech money flooded the city. It's one of the most painful and disruptive forms of moving.
In America's most desirable cities, New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle, Miami, Boston, housing costs have arisen dramatically over the past few decades. Rents that were once manageable are now beyond reach for many working and middle-class people, and so they move, not by choice really, by necessity.
Necessity. something that is required, not optional. Moving wasn't a choice, it was a necessity. When the rent is 2/3 of your income and it goes up again at lease renewal, moving becomes necessary, not adventurous.
And this creates a secondary wave of movement. As people leave expensive cities, they move to mid-sized cities, suburbs, or smaller towns. Those places then become more expensive, and people who lived there affordably for years suddenly find themselves also priced out. The wave continues.
This is called displacement. When a community or a group of people is pushed out of a place, usually due to economic pressure. Longtime immigrant communities have experienced displacement as neighborhoods gentrify. Displacement is a serious social issue in many American cities.
Gentrify. When wealthier people move into a lower-income neighborhood, property values rise, businesses change, and the original residents, often poorer, often people of color, often immigrants, can no longer afford to stay. The neighborhood has been gentrifying for years. Many original families have had to leave. It's a complicated, contested process with real human cost.
And for immigrants especially, this is painful. You worked hard to settle in a specific neighborhood. You found your community there, your church, your grocery store that sells your food, your neighbors who speak your language. And then the rent doubles and you have to leave.
That specific loss, the loss of a community you built, is one of the most emotionally heavy versions of moving, and it happens to real people all over America, all the time.
The fourth reason, and this is a universal human one, not specific to America, is that life changes, and life changes often require a change of place.
Marriage. Two people from different places come together and have to decide where to live. Divorce. Suddenly, the house you shared is no longer yours or no longer feels right. The birth of a child. You want more space, a better school district, a safer neighborhood. A death in the family. You need to move closer to aging parents, or you inherit a home somewhere else.
School district. The geographic area served by a specific set of public schools. In America, which school district you live in determines which public school your child attends, and school quality varies enormously by district. So many American families move specifically to access better schools for their children. We move to this suburb because of the school district.
And retirement. When Americans finish their working years, many move again, sometimes to warmer states. Florida, Arizona, New Mexico are famous retirement destinations, sometimes to be closer to adult children, sometimes just to somewhere smaller, quieter, and cheaper.
Retirement destination, a place people specifically move to when they retire. Florida is one of the most popular retirement destinations in the country. Warm weather, no state income tax, and a large retiree community. It's interesting that even leaving the workforce comes with its own geography in America.
And there is one more life event that drives a lot of American moving that doesn't get named as often as it should: mental health. Starting fresh.
The idea that a physical move can offer emotional renewal, that leaving a place where painful things happened, a difficult relationship, a period of depression, a loss, can create psychological distance that helps healing begin. I needed a fresh start, one of the most American phrases in existence. The belief that a new place can be a new beginning, a clean slate, that geography and identity are linked, and that changing one can change the other.
Fresh start. The opportunity to begin again without the weight of the past. After the divorce, she moved to a new city for a fresh start. This job was a chance for a fresh start. It's deeply embedded in American self-concept, the belief that reinvention is always possible.
Reinvention, the act of remaking yourself, becoming a new version of who you are. He moved across the country and reinvented himself. New career, new community, new identity. In American culture, reinvention is not seen as dishonest or unstable. It is often celebrated. The comeback story, the phoenix rising. Americans love a reinvention narrative.
And this brings us to the fifth reason, which is the deepest one. Movement in America is not just a behavior, it is a value. It is part of what it means to be American.
This goes back to the very founding of the country. America was built by people who moved. Indigenous peoples were already here, but the dominant cultural narrative of America is a story of movement. The Puritans crossing the Atlantic, the colonial expansion, westward expansion, waves of immigrants arriving at Ellis Island and other ports, the Great Migration of Black Americans from the South to northern cities, the Dust Bowl migration from the Great Plains, the post-war suburban spread. Every chapter of American history involves a significant movement of people.
The Great Migration, one of the largest movements of people in American history. Between 1910 and 1970, approximately 6 million Black Americans moved from the rural South to cities in the North, Midwest, and West, seeking better economic opportunities and escaping racial violence and segregation. It fundamentally reshaped American cities and culture.
And from all of this history, a cultural DNA emerged. The idea that staying put is passive, that moving forward means sometimes literally moving, that America itself is a destination, and that within America there is always another destination waiting. This is sometimes called the American frontier mentality. The frontier was always ahead, always somewhere new to discover, build, claim, create. Even today, when there is no literal frontier, the mentality survives. There's always somewhere better just a little further west, or north, or south, or in the next city over.
Frontier mentality, the mindset that there is always new territory ahead to explore and build, that the unknown is not threatening, but promising, that movement equals progress. Americans tend to have a frontier mentality, always looking toward the next opportunity.
And this can be beautiful. It creates energy, it creates innovation, it creates cities that reinvent themselves. It creates people who refuse to accept the limits of where they started.
But it also creates real costs, and I think it's worth naming those too, because for all the freedom that mobility gives, it also takes something away.
It takes roots, deep roots, the kind that come from living in one place long enough to really know it, to know your neighbors' names, their children's names, to have history with the place, to know which tree changes color first in autumn, to have a favorite table at a restaurant that knows your order.
Roots, the connections that tie a person to a place or community. She has deep roots in this town. Her family has been here for 4 generations. When Americans move frequently, those roots are shallow, wide but not deep. They know many places a little, rather than one place deeply.
And loneliness. It is not a coincidence that America, one of the most mobile societies on Earth, is also one of the most loneliest. Research consistently shows that Americans report high levels of loneliness. The constant movement, while it brings opportunity, also disrupts the slow, steady work of building real community.
Real community takes time. It takes shared experience. It takes showing up for the same people again and again over years. It takes staying. And in a culture that celebrates moving, staying can almost feel like giving up, when actually, for some people, staying is exactly the bravest and most intentional choice.
The bravest choice, yes. There is real courage in committing to a place, in saying, this is where I am planting my feet. This is where I am building something lasting. That is not less than ambition. Sometimes it is more.
I want to have a direct conversation for a moment, because everything we just talked about, it connects to something that many immigrants carry with them every day, the question of belonging.
Where do I belong?
Exactly. And for immigrants, this question is already complicated. You moved, you chose to move, or were forced to move from the place that made you, and now you live somewhere that didn't make you. And sometimes neither place fully feels like home.
And then you encounter Americans who move all the time by choice, who seem almost indifferent to the loss of place, and it can feel alienating, like you're grieving something they don't understand, like your attachment to home is something they see as a weakness or a limitation. Alienating, making someone feel isolated, separate, like they don't belong. The experience was alienating. I felt like no one around me understood what I was feeling. It's a strong but important word. Feeling alienated is different from being rejected. It is the quiet experience of being surrounded by people and still feeling fundamentally alone.
And yet, and this is something I believe deeply, the immigrant experience of moving is something that should be celebrated in America. Because immigrants don't move 11 times lightly. Most immigrants move once with everything on the line, with their language, their culture, their family, their identity, all in the balance. That is not a casual moving truck in a U-Haul. That is a life packed into suitcases in a prayer.
A life packed into suitcases. Yes. And if Americans honor the pioneer spirit, the willingness to move towards something better, then the immigrant journey is perhaps the most pure expression of that spirit that exists. You left everything. You came here. You are building something. That is American in the deepest sense of the word.
Even if sometimes America doesn't always see it that way, even if sometimes the welcome isn't as warm as the history suggests it should be, the truth remains. Movement, courage in the search for something better, those values are yours too. They always were.
Word tour time. Slow. Warm. Let's just sit with these words for a moment.
One at a time. No hurry.
Word 1. Staggering. Overwhelming. Shocking in its scale or size. Example: the number of times the average American moves in their lifetime is staggering. Word 2. Cluster. To gather or group together in one area. Example: technology companies cluster in cities like Seattle and San Francisco. Word 3. Settling. Accepting less than what you could achieve. In American culture, often seen negatively. Example: she didn't want to settle for a job that didn't excite her. Word 4. Pioneer spirit. The willingness to go somewhere new, face challenges, and build something from scratch. Example: her pioneer spirit drove her to move across the country alone and start over. Word 5. Rite of passage. A significant event that marks a transition from one stage of life to another. Example: leaving home for college is a classic American rite of passage. Word 6. Priced out. When housing costs become too high and a person is forced to move to a more affordable place. Example: many families were priced out of the neighborhood as rents doubled. Word 7. Displacement. When people are pushed out of a place, usually due to economic pressure or social change. Example: gentrification caused the displacement of many long-time immigrant families. Word 8. Fresh start. The opportunity to begin again without the weight of the past. Example: she moved to a new city for a fresh start after a difficult year. Word 9. Reinvention. The act of remaking yourself, becoming a new version of who you are. Example: he moved across the country and reinvented himself completely. New job, new community, new life. Word 10. Roots. The connections that tie a person to a place or community. Deep familiarity and belonging. Example: despite all the moving, she never lost her roots. She always knew where she came from. Word 11. Alienating. Making someone feel isolated, separate, or like they don't belong. Example: the constant small talk felt alienating. I never got to have a real conversation. Word tour time. Slow, warm. Let's just sit with these words for a moment.
One at a time. No hurry.
11 words again, because this topic had a lot of heart in it. Pick one, just one. Make a sentence. Write it in the comments. Say it out loud to your reflection in the mirror, however it works for you.
And I want to ask you a real question. Not for the comments necessarily, but for yourself. Where are your roots? Where do you feel most yourself? Sit with that. You don't have to answer out loud, just know the answer. That was our episode. Why Americans move so often. Jobs, education, being priced out, life changes, and finally, movement as a value written into the very DNA of American culture.
And through it all, the thread that I hope you felt is that your story as someone who moved, or as someone whose family moved, or as someone thinking about moving, that story matters. It is not less than. It is not foreign. It is deeply human. And in many ways, it is deeply American.
You are part of this cozy club, whether you've moved once or 10 times, whether you stayed close to home or traveled to the other side of the world, whether you feel settled right now or still searching. All of it is welcome here.
One small step at a time. Maybe today's step was just sitting with the idea of belonging, of roots, of what home means to you now in this new chapter of your life. That reflection is not small, it is essential.
Leave us your comment. I'm name from place, and today I feel emotion because reason. Like this episode, subscribe, and share it with someone who is also figuring out where they belong. You might be exactly what they need today.
Just one person. That is always enough.
And you are always, always welcome here, wherever you are, wherever you're going.
Hello and welcome back to the coziest corner of the English learning world. I am so happy you're here today because this episode, I have been genuinely excited about this one. It's one of those topics that seems simple on the surface, but actually opens up into something really deep and really interesting.
It really does, and it connects so naturally to everything we've been talking about in this series, because we've been exploring what it's like to live in America as an immigrant. And one of the things that can feel really disorienting when you first arrive, especially if you come from a culture where families stay in one place for generations, is just how much Americans move.
So much moving. I remember being genuinely shocked by this. I had American friends and coworkers who had lived in 3 different cities in 5 years, who thought nothing of packing up their entire life and relocating across the country for a job, or a relationship, or just a feeling that it was time for something new.
And in many cultures, that would be seen as unsettling, rootless even, like something is wrong, like you can't commit, or like you're running away from something. But in American culture, it's often admired. It's seen as adventurous, ambitious, open to opportunity.
2 completely different ways of reading the same behavior, and that contrast, that cultural gap, is so worth exploring because it tells you something really important about American values, about how Americans see themselves in their relationship to place, community, and identity.
And for immigrants especially, understanding why Americans move so much helps you understand a lot of other things. Why American friendships can feel warm but sometimes shallow, why communities change so quickly, why your neighbor might wave goodbye after just 1 year, why the concept of hometown means something different here.
So much to get into. Okay, before we start, how are you today? Full sentence. Check in with yourself. I feel settled today because I've been in the same place for 5 years and I love it. Or I feel restless today because I've been thinking about making a big move. Both are wonderful.
And today's comment challenge, as always, I'm your name from your country, and today I feel emotion because reason.
Write it. We read every single one. Okay, let's move. Pun absolutely intended.
Of course it was.